I bet Sorbet has not read the Apocrypha book of Judas Iscariot. Probably not. I don't think I've even read the Apocrypha. Uh,
Judas wasn't even real.
really? I mean, if Jesus is real, why not Judas? I don't even know if
Jesus is
Jesus is
mentioned
real.
in the Quran. Judas isn't. Problem solved.
All right. By that logic, I guess. I find it like the funny
The
thing is,
only
sorry, go on.
the only actual option is of Judas's existence is he might have been the dude who got crucified instead of Jesus.
Interesting. Not just like a random. I thought it was usually considered to be some sort of like not random, but like a low class type individual who was like like a sacrifice kind of like relationship. I'm saying it
I don't
wrong,
know.
but like yeah, the one true book has
All I know
taken.
is there was a little switcheroo.
I I was super interested in like Jesus mythicism for a while, not because I mean, like the obviously as an atheist, the existence or non-existence of Jesus as a like religious concept is like relevant to me, but like it really is interesting trying to conceive of like how we conclude whether or not we know there to be an actual historical Jesus based on the history that is left behind. In similar ways, even like it's sort of like asking the question about like Socrates or like Shakespeare, who were figures who like left ideas and thoughts, yet didn't write things like directly in the same way that other people had, such that we know that this is like directly their stuff. Or like or you had contemporary people writing about them. It's usually people like later on that wrote about them, et cetera, right? And so it's just like interesting how to like find the pieces and how historians like go through that work or whatever. And then like on top
Yeah,
of it, then the theological question is interesting, especially in Christianity when you have like all four gospels with kind of like different accounts and like how do you like as a historian how much faith or like not faith but like credence to the text do you give such that that's giving you insight, right? And so like you do things with like we know that this gospel was written earlier than this gospel, so like does that mean that it is higher fidelity or not, and like how you do these kind of like I guess
yeah. Have you read Zealot by Reza Aslan?
I
Because
have.
I enjoyed that one. I read it recently.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I really enjoy the work of oh fuck, I forget his name. Brett? Oh no, that's gonna. Here, let me. I think I remember one of his books. Uh, shit. I love this guy's work. I'm just too fucking tired. My brain's not. My brain's not getting to it. He wrote a book, sort of like debunking. Debunking's the wrong word, but he kind of debunked the Da Vinci Code. Basically showing how like the sort of like conspiracy stuff behind the Da Vinci Code was incorrect. But now, oh well, I have his books downstairs, but I'm not going to go down there just to remember his name. Oh, I think I remember one of the titles. I think it was Jesus Interrupted. Is that one of the books? There we go. Bart Ehrman. That's what I was looking. Yeah,
Bart Ehrman.
yeah. His books are really good. Really, really good. In fact, he has a book arguing for the historicity of Jesus, responding to people who don't believe Jesus existed, which is really interesting. Even though he's an atheist himself, but he's someone who his books, like even if you're not an atheist, you should appreciate his books. Like
Nice.
they're not negative towards Christianity. They're more just about the historical insights of the texts and stuff like this. Yeah, really, really neat stuff. I went through I went through phases with like the atheist phase and stuff like that, like the angry atheist phase for like a little bit in my late teens. And then I came out of that just being super like I never stopped being an atheist. I just mellowed out, but then became super interested in religion and have read like I read it all because it's fascinating, very fascinating.
Yeah,
Karen Armstrong's is another one who's got a lot of good books on religion as well.
I love her work.
Yeah.
I love her work a lot. Her biography of the Prophet Muhammad was really good. I liked it. Um,
I read
but
her
yeah, I
Buddha book
also
recently.
had edgy atheist phase in high school because I was in the Catholic system my whole life, despite nobody in my family being Catholic.
I
And then I came out of it Muslim.
I that's fascinating, but like I find my edgy atheist phase was a little short lived, and I wonder if part of that is because in many ways I was raised atheist. Just like my dad. You want to know a funny thing is like my dad is actually I would put him in the camp of the angry at God atheist, the kind of thing that's like strawmanned or strawmanned by Sorbo in the God's Not Dead films, right? Which is this idea that like atheists are just people that hate God, and like my dad has good reasons in that respect. In that like his mom, my grandmother in that sense, but even though I never met her, she died when he was 14 on Christmas Eve. One of the like it was a snowmobile accident. So they went out for like a snowmobile ride at like late at night, and there was a car buried in snow, and then they smacked into it, and she died. So that immediately for him, like had because he was in Catholic school and all that as well, but like immediately for him being like, how could God do something like this kind of thing? So when eventually,
Yeah, holy shit.
yeah, so eventually when he's older and whatnot and has kids, religion wasn't in the picture for us. My mom was an Anglican, but for her, uh, I mean, if most people know Anglicans, they're pretty in Canada at least very not religious, or at least what's the word I'm looking for? It's like not like deep, like they think it's nice and they'll say they're believers, but like they don't really go to church. They're not like I've met a lot of Anglicans throughout my life that are like that. Just kind of like, yeah, I believe. It's kind of the extent of their religion. So
I think that's a lot of nominal
yeah,
Catholics too.
and so like in that respects, I never went to church. The only time I would go to church is if like a relative had passed away, like going to a funeral or something like that. But and so yeah, I didn't have. I think that's also partly why I found religion just like fascinating generally, and like why I got interested in like looking into it, even though like I still don't. I'm still an atheist, but it's more of just like I never had it growing up, so it fascinates me. And I think it leads into like also the things about like people believing things like water dowsing and like that. Not that they're like directly equivalent. It's just like there's something fascinating about belief and why certain people come to believe certain things, and trying to unpack that. I find very interesting.
This dumbass doesn't believe in water dowsing.
Yeah, we should want like I want to see if I can pull up the James Randi video. Just
What's the worm one? Worm summoning? Like, what's that called?
worm summoning.
Yeah, it's like water dowsing, except like you call up worms from the earth.
Call up worms from the earth. I have
Just look up
never
worm
heard of
summoning.
that.
It'll come up, I guarantee.
I'm doing the James Randi dowsing one first. I don't know if I see the video I want for it. I guess this is one. We'll try this one first.
We've heard
Here,
many
one
opinions,
second.
both for and against.
All right. So are you seeing it now? I guess if it's still screening.
Yeah, I can see it.
We've heard
James Randi passed away last year, I think. But he's pretty awesome. I recommend looking at some of his stuff online. Uh, he had a great I know TED Talk, yeah. But he had a great TED Talk where at the beginning of it, he just swallows a whole thing of like homeopathic pills and then reads like the overdose label. Pretty funny, dude.
Many opinions, both for and against, in this vital area of dowsing for good and bad places to live and work. If life and death decisions are also to be based on the results of dowsing, surely we should try to establish once and for all whether it works reliably. Please welcome my final guest, Clive Thompson.
Also fascinating thing about Randy is he came out as gay when he was 89 years old.
Well, at the moment I'm doing quite a lot of water divining, and I'm also helping out the Paris Mountain Mining Company and looking for the mineral ore band which goes around the mountain.
Well, tonight, Clive, you've agreed to attempt to find a piece of zinc ore like this one right over here, which is concealed under one of the 7 boxes that you see behind us. Is that correct?
Yes, that's quite correct.
All right, and you're happy to do it this way,
Hell
are you?
yeah.
I'm happy to do it this way. It's not normal. We work normally in the open, on the mountainsides or wherever,
Like
looking
you can
for
see,
ore.
you
But
notice
red
like he's already starting to self-justify, right? He knows that there's a potential he can get it wrong, so he's going, these aren't normal conditions, so he's like already hedging,
You're doing a studio one. I'm willing to have a go.
This
and
clearly
see
was on some sort of like old
Please
school
show us the
VHS.
effect of your dowsing rod on this sample of zinc ore, and we'll just conceal the sample with a box so the conditions are exactly the same as when you come to do the test.
Righto, James. Now, to explain how the rod works, when you're facing the ore, I don't know if you can see this, but we put a white-ended tip there. It has a slight sideways move when you're there. Take it off, and it dies. See it die, comes in, and it dies again. So to amplify that, I give it a voluntary upward movement. So aim it at the ore, and what you get a large oval form, which is easy to distinguish. If I take it to the side...
So the obvious thing that people are going to say here is you're going to go, look, he's doing it himself. You can see his hand, he's shaking it himself. Okay?
Yeah.
But here's the thing is, I'll have something to say to this at the end of this, but like that's a really interesting thing that I actually don't think that he's cognizant that he's doing that.
See it die?
And this has a lot to do when I was doing
Bring it in.
my master's thesis on.
Dead.
Well, that seems to be a very dramatic demonstration. Now, will you please try to
I mean,
locate
James
the ore
Ramsey's
sample taken
fucking
from the
amazing
same
too,
piece of
because he
zinc ore which
knows
is hidden in one of the boxes behind us. Of course, if chance alone were
he's trying so hard to like cut off all the ways. So you notice they're like playing a game with each other, right? He was already trying to hedge, but he made him do this experiment to show like there's no reason why it would work here on this one that you know is there, but not out there, right?
operating here, you'd have a 1 in 7 chance of finding the sample at your first attempt. Using guesswork alone, we'd expect you to locate the zinc ore sample by your 3rd or 4th attempt. Good luck, Clive.
Thank you very much, James. Right, I'll take number 1 first.
This is like reality TV from like the late 80s, early 90s.
There's no there. No.
Was the arrow representing like that's actually where the ore was? I don't know, some random arrow appeared on the
I
screen.
think so.
The set design is unbelievable, right? It has a very modern like feel to it. Like late night dowsing and worm summoning stream.
Yeah.
And hello, chat.
We just got raided.
We did? Ike Salas!
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Ike Salas, thanks for the raid. We're we're watching a metal dosing video today. You missed all the good stuff.
Yeah.
We were talking about the People's Party and like a bunch of far right bullshit.
Everyone should go follow Ike Salas. They are awesome. Do some great lefty content. I really enjoy their stuff. So please go check them out. They're fantastic. The music is icing on the cake. So for those who just showed up in the raid, we're watching James Randi is a well-known skeptic who passed away recently. But we were watching. How did we get here? Okay, we're watching a Kevin Sorbo interview and his being pro-life and other crappy things, and then he did a film that like was criticizing water douse. Well, it was oil dousing in that one. So we went from that to be like, oh, I can't believe that they were actually right about dowsing. So now we're watching James Randi debunking dowsing, and so he put this guy through a test where this guy claims that he can use his rod to detect where metal is. And so they did it on like a test one first, and he showed up with the rod, and the rod did what it's supposed to do. See, if it does a left to right motion, that means that the zinc ore is there. But if it does an up and down motion, that means nothing's there. So this is what we're watching right now, is he's walking through these random boxes to see if his dowsing rod is going to magically detect where the zinc ore is. So we're going to figure it out.
I'll try 4 again just to see.
Oh, this music is really good.
Yeah. This was a whole series. I can't remember if it was on PB, whatever the public act. What is
Well, James.
what is
PBS?
The, PBS, yeah.
7, see if
I think it was on PBS.
On number 7. All right, let's take a look and see.
I have his book too that was
Now,
written
even I
about
don't
the
know
TV show.
underneath which box the zinc ore is, and I see.
Thank
that
you for
it's not here.
procrastinating on a
Well,
big edit
Clive,
this
would
time.
you like to have a second try at it?
Let's try number.
I just released a podcast episode today that was a friggin' huge thing to edit. You're probably editing writing, I'm assuming, but still.
4 again.
Number 4.
He's not embarrassing himself. He's
Well,
showing that dowsing
It was
works.
wrong, so let's try another attempt, shall we?
I'll tell you, because I think the person's a true believer. So one thing that we had suspected earlier on, and I was going to get to it, because I did my master's thesis on a similar psychological effect that's going to be coming up here. But like, you could see like his hand movement, and you're thinking like he's probably tricking himself, or not tricking himself. He's actively doing it. So, and then if you think he's actively doing it, you're right. Why would he embarrass himself? I don't think he actually knows that he's the one moving the rod. Okay. I'll get to that in a second, but we're going to watch him.
Can we go back like just a couple seconds? Because he had this like the most awkward
Oh no, it's so
smile
awkward
when
to-
he asked it.
Here.
Like
Well,
when he
Clive,
asked
would
him
you like
for
to have a second
a third box.
try at it?
Let's try number 4 again.
Number 4.
No.
Well, it was wrong, so let's try another attempt, shall we?
Yeah, like you can tell the how.
Yeah, that little grin there, like, oh shit.
It's James Randi. I guarantee they're all empty. We'll find out.
I hope they're not, because that like gives an answer to the dowsing. If it's empty, then it's just like they can't all. Then that kind of like gives them the self-justification of like, oh, it would have worked if there had been one there.
I mean, I feel like he already gave himself the out by saying this wasn't the right conditions, but at the same time, it worked on this.
We'll try number 2.
Yeah.
All right,
Hmm.
take a look. Here we are at box number 2, the third guess, and there we are.
There you
There's
go.
the piece of zinc.
On the third guess.
Zinc ore, pardon me. Well, Clive,
See?
would you join
You
me
can
here
do-
for a minute?
Yes, certainly.
Doesn't work.
We said that by chance you'd find it on your 3rd or 4th attempt. You found it on the 3rd attempt, so your results sadly seem to be no better than chance. But we'd like to thank you very much for coming tonight.
No handshake, no nothing. Wow.
We've heard
So there's this phenomenon that's called the Ideomotor effect, and it's actually what occurs when you do things like Ouija boards. So there's a reason why people like get spooked out with Ouija boards, and that is because when you have the planchette, I think is what it's called, the like triangle thing that sits on the board, and then say, you know, my hands are holding it, and the person I'm playing with, their hands are holding it, and what that does is it distributes control of the thing. So any subtle movement no longer, like, psychologically, there's a disconnect between other people moving it and myself moving it, where you lose the sense of agency in directing the device. And so that's kind of what happens to a lot of these people, is they don't actually think that they're controlling it. What's controlling it? So, for example, what's controlling it in the Ouija board example is you know what word you want to spell. And so because of that, your muscles are already, like, primed to start moving in the direction of the thing, right? So say you want it to spell no, or you say you ask it the question, like, who's the person I have a crush on, right? Your brain already knows who it, like, wants to go to, and you'll start moving without, like, knowing you're moving. It's a real effect. They've studied it in the lab. And so similarly here, when you know the rock is in there, and you know that your hand needs to move this way, your brain is already subtly, like, your muscles are tensing and doing the right motions, even though you're not consciously thinking, I have to move my hand like this. And so it's a way in which people lose their sense of agency, which is a lot of what my research was in doing my master's thesis. There was a great book called...
Exactly.
There's a great book
So
called...
dowsing works.
Yeah, dowsing works. The book is called Illusion of Conscious Will by Daniel Wagner, who was a psychologist. Really fascinating stuff. He did the studies with the Ouija board and a bunch of other... The big one, the really big one, which was actually really depressing, was this thing called facilitated communication. You want to see... We're not going to watch it here, but... let's see if I can pull this up. I think it's still online. Yeah, Frontline. So this Prisoners of Silence on Autism and Facilitated Communication. I'm pretty sure this is the Frontline documentary. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So I recommend this video. It is so depressing and weird. So there was this theory of autism, which was that, like, autistic people are trapped within their own bodies. And so the idea is that, especially for, like, nonverbal autistic people, that even though they're having fully cognizant thoughts inside their minds, so the theory went, they're unable to, like, use their body to communicate the ideas. So they came up with this thing that supposedly allowed them to communicate, and it was called facilitated communication. And what it was you had these people who would hold the autistic person's, like, hand over this kind of, like, board. So you can see it here. The facilitated communicator is, like, holding their hand, and then they would punch out stuff onto this keyboard, even though this person is a nonverbal autistic person. Okay? And the idea was that somehow holding your hand here, you're, like, stabilizing them in such a way that it's allowing them to take control of their body and start typing. Okay? But as you can already tell, what I've, like, primed you with talking about the Ideomotor effect, was these people are nonverbal because they do not have, a lot of them do not have the cognitive capacity to learn language and stuff like this. This is just the way they are. And so who's typing? It's the person here facilitating. And so all of a sudden you started having cases in America, for, like, whatever reason, through this facilitated communication, where the autistic people were typing things like, my parents are abusing me, and there was all these things that went to court based on this thing, okay? And before you go, like, well, like, what if they are talking? They do this really devastating experiment that is fucking brilliant, where they... Oh, where is it? I know it's got to be closer to the, like, the midsection of this thing. Okay, right here. Okay, so see what the setup is here. You have the facilitated communicator sitting here, and on beside them would be the autistic child. Okay, and then what they would do is here they would put an image, and here they would put an image. Okay, so the facilitated communicator can only see this image, and the autistic child can only see the image over here. All right, and then you ask them to type what image they're seeing, and it would always be what the facilitated communicator was looking at. So you had years that people thought that these autistic children were verbal and actually communicating things, and the whole time it was just the facilitated communicators talking.
God.
Many court
Anyways,
cases,
worm dousing or worm summoning, please. We have had enough grim shit tonight.
Yeah, it's but it's just it's a fascinating story. It gets. I'll end with the one grim thing is in terms of like the persistence of belief. Like I think it all started from like good places, but the one guy that we saw near the beginning, this dude, where is he? This dude, he was the guy who created this therapy. Okay. And I think he started from a good place. But once the evidence showed that he was wrong, do you think he actually took it in, like, was like, oh, yes, I am wrong. We need to change our ways. No. I believe he is still actually the head of the facilitated communications program at his university, if I can remember what university it is. I'll pull this up. Oh, where is he? Where is he? History, okay. Just looking at the Wikipedia, so I'll find that. Douglas Bilkin, that's his name. Bilkin learned of the work. Bilkin has worked at Syracuse University since 1969 and founded the university's Facilitated Communication Institute in 1992. Following Burton Blatt as dean, Bilkin has been university leadership with the Center on Human Policy since its inception. In August 2005, Bilkin became dean of the School of Education. The appointment was criticized by the Commission for Scientific Medicine and Mental Health. So yeah, he's still basically the dean of this fucking university in Syracuse. Hooray!
Woohoo!
Yeah, so it's I don't know. I mean, like, grim story, but like, yeah, people do trick themselves. They trick themselves, and I mean, that's why, like, it's weird. It is so weird, like, dealing with all these people who are like taking horse paste and shit like this, because it's like I don't know how to convince them out of their beliefs. If you believe something so strong, like, this dude's a PhD, but he's invested in it. So it's like, once you've invested in it, like, how do you directly one-on-one talk these people out of it? Which is why, like, when you think about it, things like vaccine passports are, well, I know we don't like the name passport or whatever, but like things like vaccine mandates that restrict people or like put public pressure on people to take their vaccines is the way to go about it, because you're not going to fix the problem by just telling people the facts and hoping that you're magically going to convince them through reason and debate. It's not going to happen. As sad as that is, I wish it was the way that human beings work. I just do not think that it is the way that human beings work. And so, yeah, this is, if anything, a metaphor of where where we are today. Hooray!
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.